Welcome to the Jeff Lynne Snare Sound Part 2, where we find out the snare mic that Jeff Lynne hated and how they got around it. Next on Music Surgery with Dr. Bob. During the recording of Full Moon Fever, I had the pleasure of being in a few sessions with engineer Don Smith. He was always extremely friendly, had a huge ear and attention to detail, and worked amazingly long hours. Sadly, Don has since passed, but I'll never forget how he brought a snare drum to life on one of those sessions after hours. Don was talking about the snare that they'd recorded and mentioned that it didn't have any snap and that Jeff Lynne hated the sound of snare bottom mics. This is typically the mic that gives the snare its bright and brittle pop that's obviously mic'd on the bottom of the snare. To solve this problem, Don made a makeshift stand with a guitar amp laid on the floor facing upward and a snare drum hovering over the top of the amp facing downward with the snare side up. He then cranked the previously recorded snare drum audio through the amp and only mic'd the bottom side of the snare like in the photo. Recording this gave him another bottom snare mic and snap to add to the snare that they'd previously recorded. Keep in mind that there was no Pro Tools or true ability back then to add any samples to the previously recorded snare, other than basically playing the samples in by hand from a sampler, which would have taken forever and not been perfectly in time to the original snare. Most of the time, the snare bottom mic is pummeled with kick drum bleed, so it's gated to within an inch of its life and missing a lot of its character. But today we're going to solve all that and show you some really nice snare buzz options for any snare that you've recorded. While recording the Jeff Lynne snare drum, we recorded 3 different snare tensions that you can put underneath any snare drum for snap, crackle, and pop. First, a tight tension. Now, a medium tension. Now, a loose tension.
All right, so let's dive into one of the most forgotten about drum mics, the snare bottom mic. I'm going to play our Jeff Lynne snare with no bottom mic. Okay, so first off, let me add this, the tight tension bottom snare mic. That's what we're listening for. So I'm going to start it without it, and then I'm going to pop it in. Okay, you can already hear even just the tight tension bottom mic adds a lot of snap. And with no extra bass drum bleed, hi-hat bleed, whatever, you can roll it in however much you want to taste. Obviously, when it's gone, you lose that pop, you lose that snap that can cut through a lot of stuff in a dense track. Let's move on to our medium tension bottom snare mic. Without. Again, same thing. More snap, more crackle, more pop. And that little bit of bright with no kick drum interference is really going to help the snare pop through. Now, on to our big time rattler, loose tension. I mean, you can really drastically change the snare drum sound with just this. That's got no gate on it, so it's also picking up some of the room. Now I could trim this sample, get rid of some of that room. Interesting how these 3 different snare drum tensions can really help your snare pop through a track with that just bit of brittle and brightness. And depending on what type of flavor you want, what kind of character, all 3 of these tensions make a big difference. Tight, medium, loose.
So, if you've never thought much about the bottom snare mic or different snare tensions, it's obvious what a huge amount of character they can give to any snare. Doctors, as you well know, are privileged and wealthy, and I need you to subscribe and ring the bell to keep me in that lifestyle that my wife, my kids, my ex-wives, and my girlfriend are all accustomed to. Thanks, and thanks for watching Music Surgery with Dr. Bob. Thanks for watching Music Surgery with Dr. Bob. It's been really fun going down memory lane and remembering back on this stuff, and anything Jeff Lynne does is always worth a listen and always worth discussing. I'm getting together a little freebie for all of you that I'll be sharing with you shortly, and I'll see you the next time the doctor's in.